Hello. So this tutorial will cover how to write a simple G-code program for the CNC mill. The part is going to start out as a 4x4 square stock, and each corner will get a 1/2 inch radius. The main lesson here will be covering G02 circular interpolation, but we will also go through different G-codes as they apply to the program. Now it's important to note that on the print where part 0 is located. For this piece, part 0 is going to be located at the lower left-hand corner, and all the dimensions will be based from that origin, so it's important to keep that in mind while we're creating the program for the part. Okay, so on the screen you can already see the full program, but let's go ahead and take it line by line so we can understand what's going on at each block. So the first thing we see in our program is the percentage sign. Each program must begin and end with the percent sign. Now the second block, the second line, always begins with the letter O, and you can enter up to a 5-digit number after the letter O. Here we have O00123. On the next block, N5, this line is what can be called your safe codes. We have the G90, which is absolute positioning, G20, which is going to be in inches, G54 is going to be using the G54 work offset, G28 sends it to machine home, G40 cancels any cutter compensation, and G80 cancels any can cycle. Okay, I'd like to pause a minute and talk really quickly about the N number, which is also called the sequence number, the number of block. The N address character is entirely optional. It can be used to identify or number each block of a program. And also, when I refer to a block of a program, I mean one line of code. So you can call a block a line, or a line of code can be called a block. So when you use an N number, you're going to use it sequentially. And usually I start the code with an N5 and have my next line become N10, and so on and so forth. So I'll name each line of code as a multiple of 5. So first line N5, second line N10, third line N15, fourth line N20. That way, if you need to edit your code or you need to add a block or a line of code in between, you can put in, let's say you need to add a block between N5 and N10. Instead of renumbering all your sequences, you can just input an N6 or an N7 or N8 in between the N5 and N10. If you were to number your blocks sequentially in multiples of 1, like N5, N6, N7, N8, if you notice an error in the program and you need to later add another line of code, it's going to be difficult to add because you'd have to change all your sequence numbers up one, or the new line of code you have won't have any block number to search for in the program. So usually when you start your block numbers, you can start with N5 or even N10, go multiples of 5, 10, 15, whatever you like. Just have them be sequential, and it must be an N number followed by a number between 0 and 99,000. This next line of code is block N10. Here we have a T01, M06. The T is an address character that stands for tool selection code. And the 01 means that we want to select tool 01 or tool 1. The M06 is a miscellaneous or M code, and that signifies tool change. So in this block, we're telling the machine to load tool 1. Okay, the next line of code is block N15. Here we have a G43H01. The G43 is your tool length compensation. and it's always paired with an H number, in this case H01, because we're referencing the tool length offset from tool number 1. Okay, here in block 20 we have an S2000 M03. The S is a spindle speed command. Here we want the spindle spinning at 2000 RPMs. M03 is an M code, and M03 means turn the spindle on clockwise. The next line of code is block N25. On this line we have a G00, X negative 0.25, Y negative 1.0. The G00 is a G-code that stands for rapid motion. The G00 is used for non-cutting moves of the machine in positioning quick to a location to be machined. So basically we're telling the machine, which right now the spindle's at machine home, we're telling it to rapid or move to X negative 0.25 and Y negative 1.0. So from machine home, it's going to rapid to left of the origin on the x-axis and below 0 or on the origin on the y-axis. Okay, the next line of code is block 30. Here on N30 we see Z 1.0. Z is referring to the z-axis or the up and down travel of the machine. On this line of code we're telling the machine to rapid down to 1 inch above the part. Notice that on N25 we've chosen a G00. It's a rapid motion. So that G code is modal. That means until you turn it off in a different block or different line, it'll stay on in the following codes that follow it. So on block 30, the G00 is still active. So again, we're telling in the z-axis we want it to rapid to 1 inch above the part. Okay, here on block 35 we're still focusing on the z-axis. We're now telling the machine to rapid to 100 thousandths above the part. So on line 30 we told the machine to rapid to 1 inch above the part. Here we're coming a little closer to part 0, to the top of our part. Okay, here in block 40 we're telling the machine to rapid negative 0.25. That's going to take the spindle or the tool a 1/4 inch below the top of the part. Now on block 45, notice that we switched to a G01. This is the code for a straight line cut. This G code provides for straight line or linear motion from a point to point. Also, notice the F15.0, we're turning on our feed rate, and the Y3.5. So in this line, we're changing to a G01, so we've turned off G00 and switched over to G01, which is a straight line cut. And from where the tool is right now, at that point, we're going to move positively in the Y direction all the way to Y3.5 at a feed rate of 15.0. Okay, so here in block 50, we're now ready to execute the G02 command. So let's take a look at block 50. It's a G02, X 0.5, Y 4.25, I 0.75, and J 0.0. A G02 means that the code's going to generate a clockwise circular motion. And as we can see on the screen, in order to execute a G02, we need to have 5 things in place. The first one is that we need to have the G17 or the plane selection command. The second one is we need the arc start position. Third one is we need the rotation direction. G02 means we're going to be going in a clockwise direction. Fourth, we need an arc in position, and we're using the G90 absolute. And finally, we need an IJK method or an radius method. Notice here on the drawing our arc start point. Also notice our arc end point, and also take note of the arc center. Notice that in block 50, after the G02 command, we have the arc endpoint, which is x 0.5 and y 4.25. Also keep in mind that this arc endpoint is from the middle of the cutter. Since we're not using cutter comp or cutter compensation, we have to calculate the G02 from the center of the cutter to the arc center. To figure out what the I value is, remember that I value equals the x-axis distance from the start point to the arc center. And to figure out the J value, remember that that's the y-axis distance from the start point to the arc center. So I and J is always figured from the start point, which in this case is the x negative 0.25, y 3.5. Okay, so let's figure out the I value. How did we get 0.75? Well, we start at the arc start point, which is x negative 0.25. And the distance from the start point to the arc center on the x-axis, we know we need to go over 1, 2, 3 units to the right, or 0.75. To find the J value, which is from the arc start point to the arc center in the y-axis, notice that it does not need to go up any amount or down any amount from the start point to the arc center point. Therefore, the J value will be 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute the G02. Okay, so here let's go ahead and switch to a live view so we can understand how the cutter is going to move from here, this point, to this point. Notice in the next line on N55 where there's a G01, that's going to be a straight line cut. So we have N55, G01, X 3.5. So basically what we're telling the cutter to do is to move from this point, a G01, a straight line cut, and we want the cutter to stop here, which is X 3.5. Now go ahead and look at block N60, where we're ready to begin again another G02. This G02 is going to command the machine to cut from here to here. Now notice in the print that the curve of the part is a 0.50 radius, which is typical. So this corner here is 0.50, this corner here is 0.50, this corner here is 0.50, as well as this corner here. But when we make our cut using this cutter, the cutter is going to create a different radius, and actually this radius is going to be 0.75, because our arc center is right here, and from arc center to the radius is 0.5. That gives us our 0.5 on the part. But from arc center to starting point on the center of the cutter is going to be a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. So in this case the radius will be a 0.75. So again, let's go ahead and get back to block N60. We're going to do a G02, which means clockwise circular interpolation. And after the G02, notice that the X is 4.25, which is from X0 to here is 4.25, and Y is 3.5. So from Y0 up is 3.5. And on your G02, you're always going to have the x value and the y value be the end point of the radius. Now to figure I, there's two ways to do it. You can draw it out on a chart, and I have that chart right here. Or you can calculate it just from the straight off the print. Let's do it that way here. Okay, so to calculate I, remember it's always from the start point of the arc, which is right here. And I refers to the x value. So notice here, the start point of our G02, and here's the arc center. So from here to here, we're not moving any value in the x. So we're not moving to the right any value. We're not moving to the left any value. Notice that the x value from the start point to arc center, it doesn't move. It stays the same. We're not going this way, and we're not going back that way. So the I value on this G02 will be 0. Now to figure the J value, remember J is associated with the Y, and again it's taken off the start point, which is this one, to the arc center. This one we are going to have a number value, because this one from the start center we have to go down 1, 2, 3 units. So we're going down negative 0.25, negative 0.5, negative 0.75. So we're going down negative 0.75 to get to the arc center. And this position is going to be incremental. So we don't want the absolute position here. We want the incremental position from the arc start point to the arc center. So we're going down negative 0.25, negative 0.5, negative 0.75. So that's why in block N60 the J is negative 0.75. Okay, so now our cutter is right here, and we're still in G02 mode, but notice that in line N65 we switch back over to G01, which again is a straight line cut, and we want to cut straight down from this point. We want to cut down straight to this point here. So block 65 is G01, which is a straight line cut, and we want the cutter to cut straight down all the way to Y.5, which is right here. Okay, so now we're ready to do another G02, which is block N70, and we're going to do a G02 from here clockwise again, and our cutter is going to stop right here. So again, G02 is clockwise, and after the G02 we have an X value 3.5 and a Y negative 0.25. So in the line that has the G02, you always want to have the coordinate for your end point. So again, this end point has an X value of 3.5. Remember, our origin is here, so we go over 3.5, and a Y value, since our 0 is here, we're going to come down negative 0.25. So now let's figure our I's and our J's. You can figure it right here off the print, or you can do it again from the chart. Let's do it off the print. Notice that this is our start point. We always figure our I's and J's from the start point to the arc center. So the I, which is our X value, is the incremental distance from the start point to the arc center. So if our start point is right here, to get to the arc center we have to go in the negative direction, negative 0.25, negative 0.5, negative 0.75. So our I value is going to be negative 0.75. Let's figure the J value. For the J value, Notice that we do not have to go up in any direction or down in any direction because we're on the same level as our arc center. So for our y, which is our j value, it will be 0 because we're not going up any amount, nor are we going down any amount. So in block N70, our j value will be 0.0. So now our cutter is here, and we want it to move in a straight line cut to end up here. So we'll go ahead and switch again to G01 and tell it to cut straight across and end up here. So in block N75, we're doing a G01, and we want the cutter to start here, but we want it to end up at this point, which is X 0.5. Now in block N80, notice again we're ready for another G02 circular interpolation. Again, our arc is going to be clockwise, so we'll use a G02. Notice our endpoint. Our endpoint has coordinate values of X negative 0.25 and a Y 0.5. So after the G02 in our block N80, we'll have X negative 0.25, Y 0.5. Now let's figure out the I's and J's. Again, the I's and J's can be figured out from the print, or we can do it from a table. Let's figure this one out from the print. Okay, going back to the start point, remember our I's and J's are figured from our start point to our arc center. So the I value, if our start point is here and our arc center is here, notice that we do not need to go to the right any amount or to the left any amount because we're lined up on the same level as this arc center. So our I value, which represents our X value, will be 0. Now let's figure out the J value. Notice that from our arc start point, we need to move up in the y-axis 3 units. So from our arc start point to our arc center, we have to move up 0.25, up 0.5, up positive 0.75. So our J value, which corresponds to our Y value, will be 0.75. Now let's tell the machine to cut here and go straight up with another G01. This time our cutter will move here and go all the way up to this point here, which is going to be X negative 0.25, the Y value, which is Y is 5.0. So since our cutter is already positioned in the correct X value, all we need to do is tell it G01, Y 5.0, and it'll take it straight up, cutting this part and taking it off the part and ending up here. Okay, so all that's left to do in the program would be to look at block N90, and we're going to switch from G01 back to a G00, and we're telling the machine to wrap it up to Z1, which is 1 inch above the part. The next block, N95, has M05, which tells the machine to stop the spindle. Block N100 has G28, which tells the machine to go home. And the last block, N105, is an M code M30 to signify the end of program. Finally, to close the program, end it with a percentage sign, and you're done. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.